is that we are going to ask book authors questions that only a book publisher can ask. And since I happen to be one of those said publishers now for actually technically over 10 years, but we celebrate our launch 10th year anniversary this year, I have a few questions that I can ask. So I'm very happy to introduce our book author who comes from North Carolina for the stream this morning. His name is Sandip and Bhatlawande. Actually really like saying his name. He has a fun name to pronounce. I'm going to bring him on stage, but before I do, I'm going to read his bio. And as I do this, I get to put on my glasses. I've decided I'm going to get contacts that have bifocals because I'm sick of the glasses thing. So he is a dynamic storyteller and entrepreneur at heart. He's a keen observer of ambition, risk, and transformation in the modern world. So if you kind of get this feel, you might understand he's a fiction book author with a professional journey that spans the high-stakes environment of Wall Street banking to the creative realm of literature. He brings a rare blend of analytical insight and imaginative depth to his writing. We're going to talk about his book called A Billion Dollar Dream. And this book reflects his fascination with bold ideas and the relentless pursuit of success. We're going to dig more into the book, so I'm going to let him talk about it. But I also want to let you know what he says is that, he writes for aspiring entrepreneurs, dreamers, or anyone that dares to think beyond limits. And his work bridges the gaps between business and storytelling, making complex journeys accessible, engaging and deeply relatable. And when he's not writing, he continues to explore new ideas at the intersection of finance, innovation, and creativity, always guided by one core belief. And here it is. Wait for it. Every great success begins with a dream and the courage to pursue it. So let's bring up Sandip. Hang on. Here you go. Welcome to Now Conversations. Good morning.
Good morning, Liza. How are you?
I think I'm pretty good. And, it took a lot of coffee to get me here, but I'm here. I can tell from how I'm acting. So how much energy do you have this morning? Let's go with that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I had to grab an extra large coffee as well. So yes,
Very
I'm getting
good.
there.
Well, and welcome. And I want us to talk a little bit about how we know each other and we have some similar backgrounds and such. And as I was thinking about this morning's podcast, that you live in North Carolina.
Oh, it's absolutely. Charlotte, North Carolina. It's
In
beautiful
Charlotte.
here.
Yes. And you are a father of, and remind me the ages of your boys, right?
Absolutely. No, I got two, one boy and a girl.
Okay.
My boy is 9 years old. His name is Arjun, a third grader. And my daughter, Sahiti, is 17 months old now.
Oh, you have a little toddler, and then I loved third grade. I mean, I'm a, mom, love that role. I love third grade was so fun, right? They're reading. They're so, they're so intelligent at third grade, but it's just a fun year. Oh, wow. Caffeine is a must.
Yeah, they're transitioning into a new person or becoming their own person by themselves.
Yes.
It's fascinating to watch that. And the first one is always special, right? Because every day is new for you. So
everything's new. But the second one, surprisingly, everything's new for them because they're completely different. Even though they grow up in the same household with the same everything, it's just kind of crazy how that works. But it's fun. Oh, wow. Well, we could talk about kids all day long, but let's talk about you. And as you heard with the bio, really kind of dug into the storyteller, the writer, the author you are. But let's talk a moment about your profession and the fact that you and I met at the Tampa Bay Wave pitch, all things business and tech in Tampa Bay. So let's talk about how you got there, because I'm curious. I don't know that part. How did you come from Charlotte to Tampa for that? And what you thought of it, and also your professional background, please.
Absolutely. No, it was fun, right? Tampa, I had been to Tampa for the first time when my brother lived there, Sarasota. Absolutely loved the environment, right? The people and, absolutely beautiful beaches. However, This time I was there for business. I am founder of a fintech startup called Arme. A little bit of my professional journey is, I grew up in India. I became an engineer, a very typical traditional path, right? For the people of my generation, your dads give you two, moms and dads give you two options. You either become a doctor or an engineer. Did I know I wanted to become an engineer? No, but I knew I did not want to become a doctor. So, by process of
Should have gone
elimination,
for one.
exactly, I became an engineer. Got a job, like with a nice technology company, and happened to basically come to US to do some work. Went back and then decided to pursue my higher education in United States. So like I got a nice scholarship, so that was a big draw, right? Because scholarships are important. So anyway, that brought me to US, and then I was lucky enough to get into finance, and that brought me to Charlotte, one of the like large banks here. Spent more than a decade, and then what happens is, and this goes into my book as well, like you start looking for after a while, you've got a comfortable job, everything looks fine on paper, but you start feeling something is off. You don't get that kick anymore. And then that got me into the startup world. I joined the startup, and then there's the rest of the story that I'll cover during conversation. But after basically then bouncing across a few ventures, I started my own. And Tampa happens to have a really great ecosystem for cyber tech. And they put together, especially the one, this Tampa Bay Wave, put together is probably the best in the industry when it comes to getting the founders in the cybersecurity industry. And I was so privileged when I was selected among the cybersecurity founders group, and that's when you and I met in Tampa Bay event.
I love that. And I have to remind myself which podcast I'm on, because I do a podcast for the Tampa Bay Wave also, that's Business and Tech. And we just had taping day this week, Friday or Thursday, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we could talk tech all day long, and we could also.
I'm glad you found me on the weekend, because but during week I am in the work zone. Weekend is all about personal,
writing,
family, and the creativity.
Oh, I love it. Well, you do what we tell our authors to do. You have a specific time that is set for the creative download of content. We actually call it at our company BIC, and it's just something we've had for years, so we haven't changed it, but it's called Butt in Chair is what it stands for. And so as we're bringing on clients, we address the BIC time, and we say, now put it in your calendar. It will become a routine, just like anything, anything new. I have even clients will say, oh, I don't like to social media post or whatever it is. I said, well, just start it, make it a habit, and it will start to become just natural, so to speak. So just like that. Oh, thanks for sharing. Okay, well, fantastic. And we do, if you're on the stream and you're listening, we're live on YouTube and LinkedIn Live and Facebook as well. And if you happen to be on the live, not the rebroadcast, we will have a Q&A if we have time. So just to know, in the comments, you can ask questions or you can come on stage. So let's dig into your book, because this is going to go by fast. This 30 minutes is going to go by fast. So let's talk about your book. And I'm going to bring it up on stage. So love the title, A $1 Billion Dream. It is a fiction genre book. It is out and available, and we'll put in the show notes, and I'll put on the stream here how to order it, but you can search it as A $1 Billion Dream. What I love about this book is the fundamental that we talk to our authors about, and that is write what you know. And if it's fiction, you better know a lot about what you're writing about, because then you've got your creative brain based on your experience. So share about what your book is about, please.
Absolutely. So, I know this goes back to, when I started writing this book. The first one is so special, right? And there needs to be a special event behind it. So my book is about the mid-career crisis that most of us go through when, like I said, you basically have a fantastic thing going on. You're sometimes probably at the peak, right? If not the exact peak, but something feels off. I was going through probably something similar, and that's why I left like a very cushy job at one of the top Wall Street banks out here, uh, and then jumped into a startup journey. So for me, how I got to writing a book, and what basically led to a lot of content in this book is, I worked for a startup. We succeeded, or like built like more than $1 billion company. Suddenly, it collapsed. For the first time, I lost my job. That was huge, and I wanted to tell what happened. I was a blogger before. I'd written blogs, so I did what I naturally used to do. I wrote a blog, but it's like that event was big. Call it, probably some kind of a trauma, right? And I needed like bigger, different outlet, and that's when I got into the writing a book, writing a fiction. It was less about venting out and telling what happened, normally how I would do in a blog, but rather I changed it into a creative exercise, and that actually totally changed. Not just probably like myself. Like I suddenly got out that whole logical brain and analysis of what happened, what went wrong. Rather, I turned it into what could have happened. What, like, okay, let's basically get into the imaginary world. And then, I forgot about the real events, and I got into the fictional and the even in the imaginary brain. So one is, that gave me an outlet, that gave me a content, and it became more enjoyable. But also then I started writing it for the audience, right? And then you start getting into their shoes, and okay, nobody wants to listen me venting, but okay, let me turn it into a story. Let me make it enjoyable. Let me actually like give them something that will be worth their time. If they're spending probably like 30 minutes reading a chapter, or maybe someone wants to like spend probably like few hours going back to back. Okay, let them walk away with something fun, some smile on their face. And that's what like went into my book. What the book is all about is, it's about a character who's at the peak of the career, but feels I'm not getting the kick anymore, goes out and starts looking for problem, right? And now this gets into my own startup journey experiences, right? And then you cannot basically go look out for a problem. You have to get into the problem. So yeah, this book is based on our current American times, a very polarized society. And then when this person actually gets out and starts realizing like what happens on ground, he starts to he tries to fix it, and then goes through the ups and downs what most of us go through. And then it's a beautiful journey in a fictional world that you will enjoy.
Thank you. I did read the summary. It's you're a great writer. I mean, if you wrote the summary, then I assume that you wrote the summary, you wrote the rest of the book. Obviously, it's engaging, and I want to unpack a number of things that you just said. So first of all, using book writing as an outlet, 100%, right? There are, in our experience, I can't tell you the number of book author clients we've had that say that writing, finishing their book, editing their book, the whole process of writing has been so therapeutic for them. There have been memoirs that we have published that were difficult ones for the writer, and they would come to us to say, look, I've written it, let's move forward to publish. And because as in the editing process, and this, where you're re-looking at things and you're grabbing more information of that, you really are reliving it. And that outlet that the writing gives to you is so valuable. So thank you for bringing that up. And especially you said this idea that first of all, I loved that you cared about the reader. You're like, I want the reader to have this amazing experience. I want the reader to have value. And I'm going to liken it. I'm going to turn it a little bit back to me. We talked about, we just missed each other because I was just in Charlotte, North Carolina for my first TEDx, which was super fun and exciting. But I'll tell you what my coach would say to me is, people are up there watching, but it's not really about you, who you are, what you're saying. It's about the value that they're getting. Speak to them, the value that they're getting. So it's the same thing in a book, and, when we talk about what's our most valuable resource, this as busy dad, professional, startup entrepreneur, writer, it's your time. It's your time. So when, someone, if you approach your book with the way that, someone is giving their money to buy your book, but then they're giving you the 3, the 5, the 10 hours it takes, whatever how speedy or not they are as a reader, right? They're giving you that time. Are you rewarding them for that because they say, oh, it's the best book ever, I'm so happy? My favorite books are the books that I don't want to read the last chapter, right? I don't want it to end because I'm loving a book so
Yes,
much, right? That's the thumbs up for me. So thanks for
absolutely.
sharing that.
Absolutely. No, this is also, but I'll also say that, right? The first time authors, I mean, perfection is the enemy of good, or there is a saying like that. So a lot of us have this huge image of our favorite authors, and we try to become them. I mean, there are like two lessons learned from me. One is you are you, right? So be you. That's one important thing. So authenticity is more important than anything else. And next thing is that I think you mentioned about the process. Get your book, write it. One is be authentic and get to the end on your manuscript. That's like one of the best feelings. But then that's probably the beginning of the journey. Then you got this perfect ecosystem of editors and all that. That will actually make it better. So like I took 2 years to write it. 1 year
That's
was
what I
the
was going to
manuscript
ask
and
you.
it was done. So yeah, I
Okay.
mean, people need to just finish it, get it out, and then like the book will evolve.
Well, and that was going to be my next question, is describe your process. I've met with authors that have been writing a book for 30 years and they haven't stopped yet. I've met authors, that come to us with a notebook of well, I know I want to write about this. I know I want to say this because I lived through this, and I know I want the reader to know this message. I mean, they've got 3 bullets and we start to do that build. So,
Wonderful.
everyone comes to it at different stages, but only a book author understands how much work and effort and time goes into it. Correct?
Correct. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe I'll summarize it this way, right? One is you got to have a very strong motivation, right, to write a book. Like I said, in my case, yeah, writing a blog is how I started, and I had done that before. But writing a book, writing a blog was probably a couple of days' work, right, when you are in the zone. Writing a book is a 2 year commitment, right? I mean, maybe like shorter for some, longer for some. You need that strong motivation, right? Um, and the second part is, like, I mean, the butt in the chair
Right.
philosophy.
DIT. The
That
DIT.
yes, yeah. I mean, one is bring that discipline to life, get proper help if needed. But yeah, if you are in it, then you got to finish it. It's very important, and then like evolve. I mean, there are so many ways to go about it, but yeah, that discipline and having like it's like a river. You can't just put water and let it go anywhere, then it will go nowhere. You got to put the banks around it and let it flow. Right?
Well, and your background as a successful professional, as an entrepreneur, I mean, successful people are disciplined, and part of what helps us be disciplined and achieve goals is that we have the goal set and we have the stake in the ground for the deadline. Right. I
Absolutely.
had been writing, I've got my 7th book out now, and it's a book I should have written years ago. And finally, a couple of years ago, I said, okay, I will launch this book in September of 2025. And it was probably about 9 months away or so. And I had to put that deadline for myself. I mean, I can publish everyone else's book, but my own book, never gets on the schedule. You have to have that deadline. And it's interesting you say 2 years, because in our company at CEO Book Publishing, we actually put 12 months in our contract. So we tell our clients, first of all, we're in the business to publish your book. We
Yes.
love you, but we're not in the business to edit for the next 5 years. Sorry. We're not going to, if you come to us, you're going to sign the contract that says we will publish within 12 months. We agree that we will publish within 12 months. And then the clock starts and we manage it with milestones and that. So, it's like anything. And especially for a debut author, like, you used to be,
Absolutely.
you don't know the process. You don't understand all the variables, and you might get an idea, and you might have friends. This is not a good thing when some of our new authors have friends that have published, because everyone's publishing journey is unique,
Correct.
right?
That's
Not
correct.
just their story, but their journey, their background, the resources they use to help them. So it's a completely different, atmosphere for them. And so then sometimes they try to fit that atmosphere into our atmosphere as a clients with us, which we are completely unique from every publisher. Sometimes it's difficult, and it's just, I'm like, let's just talk it through. Let me, explain some options in that. But in general, I mean, how happy were you when your book was released? And tell me how it felt that first time you saw your book.
Yes. Yeah, the first time you get, especially the physical copy, right? And I'm actually holding one here, right? It feels so good to see your name, especially on like the side binder. It's a great rewarding feeling. So like one story for me was, I used to go and sit in the Starbucks, right, and right there, that was my zone. And I made friends with the store manager and like a few other employees. So she was one of the first to buy the book. She read it. She basically asked me to autograph it, took a picture, posted it on Instagram, and I felt like, shit, this is real. And it feels really good.
And you still have that image. You have the image?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love
it's on
that.
Instagram, and I have the picture. I wish I could print it to show you. But the point is, these little moments are totally worth it. So yeah, obviously, you will feel good yourself. But if you make like one reader happy, I think
Yes.
that gives you that kick, that rewards, like sense of accomplishment. That's what you're looking for as an author, and then that drives you. Okay, this is from my desk, right? This was my spot.
Right. No, it's really hard to describe, and everyone's journey is different. But it definitely, especially when we're going to talk about you're writing your second book now. You have the fever. I call it that sometimes. Our authors will, after they go through the first one, then all of a sudden they're like, okay, I'm starting to get it. Just like, you run, right? You run a 5K, you run a 10K, pretty soon you're half marathon, and then you're a marathoner. You're like, okay, I start to get it. I get the process and I like it. So it sounds like you like storytelling, you like being a writer and being an author. But every title is unique. And the experience is unique, of course, but yeah, you can't. And you were reminding me, I remember in Park City, Utah, sitting outside with my first book, not yet to be published because I'd gotten my manuscript. They didn't send me a book. Now in our company, we send actually a proof of the book. It's not glued. It's not laminated, it's not glossy, but I want my, it's called our galley. I want my authors to see it, feel it, look at the colors and all that. But in my experience with another publisher for my first book, Never Drink Coffee During the Business Meeting, they sent me a PDF in a FedEx. So it was just the PDF with the FedEx, and I didn't know anything, different. And so I just remember sitting at Starbucks. I was in Utah, Park City, and I was outside. It was a beautiful mountain, gorgeous day. And I was just going through page by page, and just that feeling, there's a feeling, and that I'll never have that again.
Yes,
Never get right. Oh, I just love
absolutely.
that. Tell us about your second book, though,
Yeah.
that you're in the midst of.
So no, this is funny, right? And also share the story how like once you're an author. Now we talked about the first time feeling. Okay, another big one, and that gives you that. Okay, now I want to get to the next one because it's getting fun now. So my teacher of my kid, who was he's in third grade now, Arjun. But when he was in second grade, his teacher invited me to the class, and hey, like creativity is so important. But now we have an author, right? And okay, teach our kids how to write a book. Okay, fantastic. So I go there and I ask the question. Okay, so first thing first, just come up with probably some idea, right? What do you want to write about? And half the class raises their hand. I'm like, okay. So the girl sitting in the front row, okay, what's your topic? What do you want to write about? And she says, a parrot. Okay, wow. Okay, a naughty parrot. So, so anyway, the fun stuff was, like I had 30 minutes, and then, I basically helped them think through a story. But the best part was not about what this parrot is doing, like messing things up and then fixing them, blah, blah, blah. But how did I engage the kids? And the kids were throwing ideas and laughing and, like pausing and, building the environment. That sort of hit me that, okay, it's less about the story and it's more about how you engage the audience. So for my second book, My first book was about my own journey, inspired by startup life and the ups and downs of in mid career when you decide to basically jump and do something else. Like that this particular character enjoys the journey more than the end, because the
Right.
end is a circle. You come back to the same place where you were successful before. You are successful again, and the one chapter has closed. So yes, I have an idea about probably writing something in the lines of the politics
Okay.
and
Ooh.
the and how does an average person who probably picks up the coffee, goes, talks to the friend, goes to the job, comes back, and it's like how you put a soccer mom and a soccer dad and relate them to what's happening in the world, and how like every person should be able to see, okay, how things impact them, but in a funny, in a fictional way. Right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's the setup I have in mind.
I like the
And
premise.
yes. So
I do
yes,
like.
I mean, typically my theme is that you should, if you're reading what's happening, like if you're reading something or on TV or on internet, you should be able to see yourself, not
Agree. We
physically,
are
but in
getting,
your imaginary
yeah,
world.
we are getting down to the end, and we do have we have an expert online. And what I did is I did put in the Amazon link for your book. I'll put it in the show notes as well, and other information, but I want to get to Leslie's question. So Leslie, thank you for being a part of the stream. So Leslie, I think, is writing her 14th book this summer. I was watching her comments, so we definitely have an expert. Congratulations. She brought up a good question, though. Her initial question was, what do we think about AI with, I wanted to make sure I read it exactly the same, exactly what she said. I think it was something about, what do we think about AI for content development? Yeah, to develop content. Yes, content. So let's give our answers, and then we're going to have to end. But so I am fan AI all over the place. I was just saying this the other day. I probably learned 3 new ways to use AI or tools right a week. I mean, it's so crazy great. But we ask our authors absolutely not to use it in their manuscript, right? But we use it for outlines. We use it for a table of contents. We use it for, I was just talking this just yesterday about using it for some subtitles for book covers, even book cover concepts, just to get us going, to start, making sure we can see different concepts. So I'm a fan, but the authentic content download for the books need to come from the author, not from AI. What is in just a moment here, what's your answer to that?
See, as a founder of an AI company, yes, I
There we
say
go.
use AI. It's for the productivity. However, right, I mean, I think people should experiment. I'm a big believer in experimenting and have someone read it. They will tell you right away the lines that they enjoyed, the lines that they did not enjoy, and that will answer your question. Whatever you wrote, it may not be perfect, but that's the whole point. Authenticity is all
Key.
creativity is about. Yeah.
No, great answer. Oh my gosh, this definitely went by very, very fast. So we are excited. So what is your goal? We talked about goals. What is your release goal date for book 2? Big
I think
question.
I'm going to need some mentoring on that, right? The things that I'm good at, the things I'm not good at. So yeah, I do not have a deadline. However, I have this motivation and inspiration. Let's stay in touch. I think I'll
Well,
probably come up with a date soon.
well, we'd love to work with you, and we have something that we would put you on that's called a writing schedule, and so that we can definitely help authors get to the finish line. So congratulations. Your book, I encourage everyone to go out and take a look at it and buy it, A $1 Billion Dream. It reads fascinating. Read the summary on Amazon, and it's in the link. And I just thank you so much for your Saturday morning time, and enjoy the rest of your fun family creative weekend. And your littles, my littles are in college. They're not little anymore. Feel sorry for me. I know, just kidding. But thank you for joining Now Conversations, and everyone watching. And here's to happy writing. Thank you.
Absolutely. And thank you everyone for joining. And thank you, Liza, for inviting me. Have a great weekend.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.